Good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday night. You probably noticed I'm not the normal host. Our normal host, Mr. Josh Rodriguez, the one and only Cherry Drank, is commuting back from his favorite place in the world, which is Vegas. So he may hop in a little bit later, but I've been sort of deputized into running the show for tonight. Have a pretty killer show. We have some normal faces, and I think another person that maybe first time on the show, first time on a Thursday night stream. So, first off, let's pull in the one and only Mr. Caleb Knight. Caleb, how's it going now that Saratoga's over? What are your, what'd you think of the Saratoga meet? How's things going?
Yeah, things are going good. Not my first time, so can't say first time on the show, but Saratoga was, for me, what Saratoga always is, which is a really fun meet with a lot of high quality racing that cost me a whole bunch of money. Um, I love Saratoga. I hate Saratoga. It's a track that I historically struggle with. There was not really an exception to that this year, but we got to see some really cool racing, some excellent horses. So that was cool. And going up there over Alabama weekend with Pops, and then obviously you're up there, Mark, and meeting some of the guys from the Discord as well as a few other people off of Twitter was really cool. So it's always the social place to be in the summer. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, looking forward to a little bit Kentucky Downs. Always an awesome track. Del Mar wraps up this weekend, which has been a lot better to me than Saratoga. And then probably switching gears, probably treading kind of lightly until Keeneland and Breeders' Cup.
No, very nice. Very, very nice. No, I mean, I know we obviously have Kentucky Downs. We have some Delmar going on. And with Josh being out, I thought it made sense to bring somebody in who this is sort of contest qualification season. Everybody's trying to get those NHC seats, those BCBC seats. And I figured we'd bring a ringer in here. We have Murphy, the one and only Greg Callywag, who is absolutely been kicking ass, taking names. He, I think, finished sixth in the second leg of the Turf Triple, which is at Kentucky Downs. Had a nice score on the day there, and he also took down with a horse tourney features like a week before that. So he's been kicking ass. And how's it going, Greg?
It's going well. Yes, the tourney scene has been good to me so far the past couple of weeks. This year it has not, and yeah, it's really nice to. This is kind of some of the best race. Like, kind of sad, right? Saratoga's ending, Del Mar's last weekend of the meet, Kentucky Downs. We get the 7 days of great turf racing, but yep.
No, I mean, Kentucky Downs been doing good. Obviously, you have a good feel for it. So, I mean, I think we were talking before we hopped on stream that you're going to be targeting, I think, the third leg of the Turf Triple. Any other stuff you're targeting?
Not in particular. I know Josh said last week that I'm moving to Japan for a couple years. So I'm not trying to win an NHCC because I don't think it's going to be feasible for me to come back. And that's kind of why I kind of sandbagged it as far as like the Kentucky Downs tournament, because it's like, well, I don't really want to win an NHCC because I'm not going to be able to do anything with it. But I think, and I don't know how wagering is going to be over there for like if I want to do something like the BCBC. I think it's going to be something I'll have to wait. But there's nothing else in particular that I'm really targeting other than not the NHC.
I was gonna say, I think if this past year proved anything, it's you don't actually have to be on premise at the NHC to play.
I know, right? Yes, exactly. I'm always looking for someone else to be the new Greg Callowag.
Greg's gonna take his talons to Shaw's Inn and Happy Valley.
Nice. No, so I did want to ask you guys. The sort of news broke today about the Churchill Downs situation with what FanDuel, right? And did you guys read any of that or get any sort of take on it? It's sort of it read sort of interesting. Obviously, FanDuel has is sort of buying up properties. It looks like they're going to be taking over the Twin Spires betting app, and they're going to be, looks like, trying to take over media rights on a lot of the CDI properties. I thought it was sort of an interesting take. Wonder if it's where you're going to see more of these big players going in the industry, and if you guys had any thoughts on that.
So I hadn't really heard. I mean, I heard that there was some kind of agreement between CDI and FanDuel. FanDuel being the parent company that just bought TVG not too long ago. I mean, I know. So I'm not a TVG person. Like my dad is. He's like I need to watch the horses on the television, so he puts on TVG. I do 99% of my race watching on the computer on the track feed. So for me, I guess I don't care that much. But I'm sure for some folks, like my pops, who's had to try to figure out where he has to go to watch a NYRA race, for example, which is not carried by TVG, and it's now on the Fox broadcast, and CDI also being a little bit of a pain in that area. I mean, I think it's good, I guess, that they're getting back onto a main signal provider, but I don't really have much of a take on it.
Yeah, I know that this is, and obviously we'll hear more from Josh when he probably next week, next Thursday. I know he had the hardest time getting the Saratoga feed on in a sports book in Las Vegas. So it says a lot about a lot of things. But yeah, I'm interested to see if FanDuel can potentially shake some stuff up. So cool. I don't know. Looks like we got a few people in. Looks like we got Foxhound, we got Jimmy on. So let's head over. Let's start out talking a little bit of Del Mar. Talking the Del Mar Debutant. Let me get this up and going. See if I can do this and not screw anything up. But we have and if anybody on stream is having a hard time reading that, I can probably zoom in on it a little bit. I know we had a little bit of problem there last time, but Del Mar Debutant going 7 furlongs, $300,000 purse. I think home cooking the 6 is 9-5. The Baffert, couple of interesting faces here. These, I know Caleb loves nothing more than 2-year-old stakes action. I think all of us sort of despise this. My first take on going through and looking at this race was sort of like, why is this a G1? And then Greg reminded me that, yeah, NYRA does this as well. So why don't we start off with Greg? Greg, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I kind of think that I really don't think too highly of Bob Baffert's fillies this year. Home cooking was kind of the only one who I think for 2-year-olds he'd be able to make any splash with. I don't know if I was kind of hoping the horse was going to be 9-5. The last race did look really good. I think the first race, I think you can kind of excuse it because the horse didn't have the best post and then dueled on the rail. And the rail's not really the place to be at Del Mar on the dirt. And then Justique is the one that ended up winning that. And a lot of people think really highly of Justique. So it's kind of like, well, if you think high of Justique, I don't know why you wouldn't think highly of home cooking. Being that, in the first race, she only lost to Justique by 3 lengths. So I did have home cooking. This is before the morning lines. I did have it as a nay, and unfortunately, the only other horse who I was really kind of interested in was the one Vegas Magic, and that's this really Vegas Magic. Vegas Magic is the only horse that is kind of proven in the field. They've won every single race they've been in. They've run graded stakes races both against girls and boys. So. I think probably what I'll end up doing is probably just singling home cooking and then moving on. Like I said, I really don't like the rail post at Del Mar at all. And Vegas Magic is kind of that mid-pack closer. And so when you kind of think about the trip they're going to get with Abel Cedillo, who hasn't actually been riding the best this year, the horse is probably going to getting stuck on the inside, and then they'll have to tip out to try to get to a better part of the track. And I think that's pretty hard to do, and I'm not very interested at 3-1 to find out if he can do it.
Yeah, Caleb, anything here?
Yeah, so I obviously respect Murph's take in California and the way he's been firing pretty much anywhere. I thought home cooking was kind of a beatable favorite in here. She ran huge last time out, right? So I understand why this filly's pretty short, but in debut, she went off really short. 1-2, and then ran a well-beaten third. Yeah, she did have the rail that day. So, I can understand making some excuses there, but I guess, to me, horses always take that big step forward from their first career start to the second career start. So, I mean, I'd be kind of looking at, the first place my eyes went is kind of to the horse that finished in front of her last time, which was the 2 Kissed by Fire. And I think it's fair to say that she probably did have a better trip than Home Cooking that day. Home Cooking was dueling on the rail. Kissed by Fire was kind of getting a nice stalking trip off to the outside, made her move, and then got run down late by Justique, who I do think is a very, very nice filly. But I don't see why she can't kind of take that step forward the way that Home Cooking did. So she is one in here that interests me. And if you get 8-1, I'll be extremely interested on that horse, Kissed by Fire. I don't know that you will, but I think that's a extremely fair price on that horse. And the other one I kind of glanced at was the number 3 in Tell Me No Lies. I struggled to find a horse that really wanted to go to the lead in this race. Home Cooking had better results rating last time. They took the blinkers off. I imagine she's not going to be on the lead here, especially with Mike Smith keeping them out. And beyond that, the only other horse that I could really see that may really want to be forwardly placed in this field, I guess with a possible exception of Fast and Shiny, would be the number 3 in Tell Me No Lies, who kind of had a bit of trouble in her debut. Broke a little bit slowly and then got squeezed a little bit late in the stretch, but was much more professional second time out. Got a win going 6.5, where most of these only have wins going 5 or 5.5. And seems to be the controlling speed in this race. It doesn't have a ton of other licks signed on. So I thought She Was a Horse was also pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea where to go here. I have such a hard time with these. I think 2-year-old stakes races are some of the hardest things to predict in horse racing, and you add to the fact that that's fillies, who I think are even a little bit more likely to, kind of have some crazy results. I just had a really hard time here. Yeah, I'm going to assume that Home Cooking is going to take a ton of money just on connections, name recognition, with it being a Baffert horse with Mike Smith up. I very much respect Murphy's take on the rail, but I kind of landed on Vegas Magic. At least you're not getting the maiden winner first time versus winners. You're getting a horse that's at least a little more proven. And obviously she's probably stepping up in company here. She probably needs to take another step forward. But I like horses that like to win. She's 3 for 3. Abel is not riding the best, but he does have 2 wins on hers. So I landed on Vegas Magic. Wouldn't take a lot to talk me off from her. And I honestly think this is one of those races that probably how you think about the race really depends on what you're in. If you're playing something horizontal, you're playing a pick 5 or something like that, you probably want to, either single here or have a lot of coverage and maybe toss the favorite. And then I think, but if you're in something like a tournament, maybe you go to somebody like the 2 Kissed by Fire, who makes a lot of sense, and trying to find one of those pricier horses that probably still has some upside in here. It's a really interesting race, in the fact of, I think there's always calamity factor in these types of races, but not one that I'm super amazingly excited to be betting. So, any other thoughts in here before we hop into the next?
I feel like you almost have to talk about the infamous other Baffert in this race. Anyone give a look to the number 5 horse, Fast and Shiny? I mean, could be potentially the other speed in this race, and you are getting Juan Hernandez up, who's typically Baffert's first call in California.
I think if you get that morning line, that horse is super interesting. I don't know. I guess I don't follow California racing quite enough. Does the other Baffert angle, is it like playing the other Chad, where they win at a high enough clip that it's actually a viable play? I don't honestly really know the right answer there. But yeah, I mean, I think, obviously there's multiple Bafferts. It's a super interesting horse. And again, maybe that's your tournament play if you get those sort of, those kind of prices.
I feel like anecdotally, the other Baffert kind of wins enough. Like, I think even last weekend there was the other Baffert that won at like 7-1 or something like that, and yet the supposedly good Baffert was like 4-5. I don't know. I wasn't particularly. I mean, I think I probably just respect Justique more, and that's kind of why I was like, I don't think I can see Home Cooking like losing. But to Caleb's point regarding Kissed by Fire and him looking for like a speed horse, the time form pace projector actually has the 2 on the lead in front of everyone else. So that the 2, I mean, if you're looking for a speed, the 2 might be the one.
Yeah, no, and then yeah, that the old game of inside draw and tactical speed is always crazy dangerous. So yeah, no, I don't hate any of those takes at all. Cool. Let's flip it on to race 9. The John Maybe Stakes, I think is what Greg was telling me how it's properly pronounced.
Yep.
Going a mile and an eighth on the turf for 250,000 for 3 and up fillies. I guess when I took a first pass at this, I was sort of scratching my head. I mean, I realized that Going Global has been really, really good as of late, but Morning Line just kind of felt a little off in here, and I know, not to throw it to Caleb again. I know Caleb is our resident, live odds extraordinaire and figuring out what these horses actually go off at. Going to Vegas versus Going Global. Who do you think? What do you think the line when the gates pop? What do you think the actual live odds are?
Yeah, so I was really surprised. And I do think Going Global probably goes off as your favorite, but I truly don't think it's going to be a 4-5 versus 5-2 level of disparity. If that's the case, then I'm probably unloading on Going to Vegas or I'm very wrong. But to me, like I don't think they're that far apart. I mean, Going to Vegas beat Going Global in their last start by a length. She owns, a tactical advantage from a pace perspective over Going Global. And well, yeah, I mean, she's settled for a couple of minor awards this year in her 5-year-old season. I mean, she's probably still the more accomplished horse, all things considered. So I do think Going Global is probably your favorite in here, but I think it may be more like a 6-5 versus a 3-2 or 6-5, 8-5 kind of a deal.
Yeah, that's how I saw it as well. And I thought it was really interesting that the line maker is that aggressive on Going Global. Maybe they know something I don't, but I guess it kind of sets it up. I think those are your two most likely horses. Do you want to talk a little more to those two, or any other directions you were looking at leaning in here?
I mean, for me personally, I do think it comes down to kind of the two of those horses. And if you're going to give me 5-2 versus 4-5, I think I have to go with Going to Vegas. She is the more accomplished mare in this field. She's settled for a couple of minor awards lately, which is a little bit troublesome. But even in getting that minor award last time out, she still beat Going Global by a length, like I said earlier. So it's like I struggle to really justify kind of in my head how I can bet Going Global as the odds-on favorite in this race when she has been beaten last time out by another one of today's horses who can't really say that was a fluke. So for me, I mean, this kind of does strike me as the race that if I'm playing a horizontal, that I probably take one or the other unless I love some bombs elsewhere. And since I do think you get a better price on Going to Vegas, and I do think that as much as I love Rispoli, Pratt is a better jockey, I would probably go Going to Vegas here.
What were your thoughts here, Greg?
Yeah. So I don't know, regarding going to Vegas, Going Global. I thought it was kind of interesting when you look up the form and you see who are the two jockeys that have ridden these two horses in their past like 10 starts each. It pretty much was like Pratt and Ravioli, like alternating each time, and like so I'm kind of curious as to who got first choice of their mount. Because obviously Pratt, I don't know what his plans were, like if he was going to stay in Naira or if he was going to come back to SoCal for the winter or anything like that. I probably preferred, and when I look at it, they didn't have the morning line. I probably preferred Going Global to Going to Vegas, but I could probably be talked on to either horse, but I'm going to go in a separate direction, I think. And that is going to be with the number 2, Bellamore, who is 20-1. And the reason why, so first I'll say I kind of wish Martin Garcia came back and rode the horse. I think Joe Bravo is a serviceable turf jockey, but I would much rather have someone who pretty much almost guided this horse to 2 different wins. The first race, one, I like that the horse already has a win at Del Mar. I think the connections are good with Kaleem Shaw and Simon Callahan. The speed figs aren't terribly far off. And when you look at the horse's running lines, the horse hasn't really taken a step back at all when you look at their turf races. And maybe the horse just doesn't like the dirt because it just seems like the horse's synth figures and the turf figures are just way better than the dirt figures. The last race at Del Mar, one that probably was a little bit too far for the horse, but also it is pretty hard to win as going as this controlling speed horse at Del Mar on the routes. And for the distance of the race, the fractions they were pretty okay. Like it's 24 and 3 and then 50, and then it kind of sped up there towards the end where Timeform gave those middle fractions red figures. And so I wouldn't mind giving Bellamore a shot, especially at 12 to 1, at 20 to 1, in things like just a standard win bet or a daily double or a pick 3. For a pick 5, I don't quite know what I would do, because I'm not super confident that Bellamore is going to end up being able to win to beat going to Vegas or going global. So I don't know if that would be like just use those two horses as A's and maybe use Bellamore as a B or a C, or not include Bellamore at all. But as far as like going to Vegas and going global, I mean, I could be talked onto either one. Like going global, never out of the exacta, 1 for 1 at the distance, like never out of the exacta at Del Mar. Going to Vegas, 2 for 2, going this distance at Del Mar. So I don't know. I mean, I think going global is probably the better horse, but going Vegas also has the better draw. So, the best horse to bet is probably the one that's going to have the better odds, truly. If it was like these horses drew post 1 and 2, I'd probably pick going global, though.
Yeah, I kind of let it. I mean, I sort of let in with it between the 1 and the 5. I really had a hard time drawing a line between the two. I think for me, going to Vegas, just being your defending race champion, with Pratt aboard probably tips the scales there for me. I found it interesting how far off I thought the line was, but I have nothing super constructive to add here. I do find it interesting that Murph is kind of throwing out a pretty cool price that he thinks has some, and again, maybe that's a kind of horse you use underneath in the vertical. So very, very cool approach. Anything else here before we hop over to the meat potatoes and go to talk to some Kentucky Downs?
I like your too, Murph. I kind of totally tossed that horse on my first pass. Like I said, it is pretty quick. But I didn't toss him. I just had like a question mark, and I kind of skipped him and didn't go back and look at him again, or her again, excuse me. But I mean, she fits. 2 for 2 at the before stretching out probably a little too far last time out. I think that's a really clever pick there, and she'll need some help to beat the 2 favorites in here. But I think if you're taking a shot against, she makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, if the horse can manage to get, I think, a similar kind of trip, maybe not like make the fractions red on Timeform like last time, but maybe we can get like a Naira special and you can be like sitting like a length off of it. I think the horse has a real shot, if they go slow enough. Now, if they go fast, I think the horse is doomed.
Cool. Very cool. Let's head over to Kentucky Downs. For obviously their featured Saturday card. They obviously had the cancellation I think it was last Saturday as well, where there was a Saturday or Sunday where they canceled the card and some of those races rolled over to today. One of those races being the race 5, the Mint Million. I know, Caleb and I have already kind of thrown our picks out there. Greg, any sort of opinions of the Mint Million? I didn't want to linger too long on a race that we already sort of beat to death on stream a week ago.
No real opinions. I do think it's kind of I don't know, I guess interesting that they like redrew the field and there's like another horse that got thrown in there. I don't know, I guess I just kind of assumed that they would keep everything the same. Actually, there's a couple new names in there. I like on the first pass, I liked Injunction and Pixelate. I'm probably gonna, I don't know. I think at least Injunction I would probably include for sure, but I don't know. I think some of the pace dynamics got changed because now some like a Hot Brown went in there. Field Pass is in there now. Mr. Dumas, who was on the 6 post last time, now he's on the rail, and so I think some of the pace dynamics probably got changed a little bit, and also I think like for Kentucky Downs, I think that you kind of have to let like the first couple races kind of dictate how the track is playing, because I think we've seen some different dynamics in regards to like the inside is good and now the outside's not good, and then you want to be on the outside closing, or now you want to be on the speed. Doesn't matter which post you're in as long as you're not in post 1 and 2. So I think I'll probably wait for like the first race to kind of tell me, or the first couple races to kind of tell me what the thing is. But I think for the price, Injunction at 20-1 is probably one for me.
No, I liked Injunction a lot. I know I was very high on Cavalry Charge when we did the stream last week. I think Caleb was as well, and I think Josh also was. I think that was the price that we all sort of landed on. I thought Cavalry Charge made a ton of sense in here. You know, Nick Feldman in chat is saying he really likes Kentucky Ghost in here as his top pick. Nick has been pretty darn sharp as well. So where's Kentucky Ghost in here and Paul? So I think none of us, we're all kind of doing some fishing for prices in here, which probably says a lot about, partially how bad the morning lines have been at Kentucky Downs, but also, these are very, very competitive races. These are really top tier stuff. And I think you don't have to be super logical in these kind of, in these kind of races, especially these Kentucky Downs races. So.
Am I misremembering, or I could have swore that Pixelate was the favorite in the initial running of this race last week? Because I remember like not really liking that horse as the favorite. Like,
wasn't Pixelate like 2-1
I thought it was
in
like
this race?
5-2
like,
or something in this race.
5-2, really short. Yeah, I thought the same thing, and I recapped it. And I was like, did I just remember this race wrong?
And like, I understand, Field Pass and something like Hot Brown. I don't think either of them were in the initial race, and both of them, have a chance in here. But Mr. Dumas was, and he was not the favorite. So I'm just trying to understand like how you can make a horse that was in largely the same field last week go from a 5-2 to a 5-1, and then a horse that was, I don't know, 3-1 or something like that, make him a 7-2 favorite now. It was just a very odd thing to play out.
Is this somehow related to how you can scratch a horse in the morning and then the horse can win the race a couple hours later and burn all of us? I think it's somehow numbers, Kentucky. It's a little rough.
I'm not ready to talk about that yet. Yeah, I just pulled up the Mint Million, and they had Pixelate was 5-2, and from last week, and Atone was 7-2. So Pixelate literally doubled in odds. If you liked him then, congratulations. Yeah, and Mr. Dumas on the previous drawing was 5-1, and he's now 7-2. So you figure it out.
I don't know. We were talking before the stream started on the morning lines, because the race 2 today, I was saying I was working and I missed like that Wesley Ward horse going off at 9-1, and I was like, I think that was the race where I looked at the morning line and I was like, this doesn't quite make sense, because they had a Keith DeSormer horse as the favorite at 7-2, and the horse like didn't really have any turf breeding. Like, I don't know who makes the morning line there, and I don't know if they're just like, oh, 2-year-old race, all right, let's just do a lottery. We'll see. Like, oh, 6 horses the favorite, 7-2. Like, it doesn't matter about anything else, So I don't know. Whoever does the morning lines at Kentucky Downs, I don't know what they're smoking.
Yeah, it was that one this morning was hilarious, because I remember capping the race and going, wait a second. Wes Ward with Jose Ortiz up in a turf sprint is 12-1 on the morning line. Does this horse have like 3 legs or something? Like, what is wrong here? What am I missing? And I looked at it and I was like, no, that horse is just a single, and the horse won for fun. It was at 9-1. It's just absolutely baffling. But there, it obviously shows you it's a track where there's a ton of value if you do your homework and do a little, put a little work in there. Yeah, and I think Nick mentioning, Cavalry Charge at 12-1, and I think talked last week. I don't know what Cavalry Charge was last week, but I think he's in this spot. I think this is a very, very interesting spot for Cavalry Charge, and I think he'll be a kind of a major player here. And he does have the draw. If you today, you did not want to be sort of inside the 5-path draw-wise. You wanted to be sort of 6 and outwards. The outside paths did extremely well all day. So,
does anybody know what the rail setting is going to be on Saturday?
I don't know what it'll be Saturday. It was 20.
Because I remember, the rail's a new thing. Historically, Kentucky Downs outside posts have been better. But I do remember last year when they took the rails all the way down for that last weekend, the inside posts did do pretty well. So just something to keep an eye on.
Okay. Yeah, not somebody. Mike here saying that Joe Christopek used to do the morning lines. Not sure who's doing it anymore. Not a name that I know, but yeah, they have been. But of course, it's probably the same person that did the Keeneland Spring ones, where they were equally as horrible. So, um, cool. Unless we have anything else here, we have an all graded stakes pick 5 sequence here, starting with race 8, the Kentucky Downs Ladies Turf Stakes, going a mile. You have Dalika is your 2-1 morning line favorite. And my question kind of coming in here, does Dalika's turf form translate to the other part of the state? Because I think that morning line is all coming off from that one big Beverly D performance. And she, to me, especially drawing the rail here, if the track is playing how it is, she's an amazingly vulnerable favorite. She's actually the kind of favorite that I might just completely toss in here. So was wondering what you guys, what are you thinking, Greg? You're shaking your head. So
Yeah, dude, I'm totally on board with you. So, kind of, I mean, Kentucky Downs is such a unique course, and so I think you'll find a lot of the horses that I like are horses that have like won or they've done well on Kentucky Downs. So I'll just preface that with that. But Dalika, like if you like, we all know how the Churchill Downs turf course has been. So if you just like cover those two running lines with your fingers, Dalika looks like absolute garbage in my opinion. She got the one post also, right? And so that's another reason why I was like, okay, well, she didn't draw great. I'm not too high on her performances outside of Churchill, and so I was 100% okay with tossing her. Now, as far as like I said, I'm kind of letting the morning races or like the early races kind of dictate how like the horses I should or should not include in here. But I ended up on 3 different horses that I was kind of interested in using. The first was number 3, Hendy Woods, who does have a win here. I wasn't really sure what to do with her though. She's probably gonna end up being like somewhere around my 3rd choice because they just haven't campaigned her as aggressively, in my opinion. She hasn't taken like a huge step up figure wise from age 4 to age 5. They didn't ship her to Saratoga this year. They kept her at Indiana Grand, which I don't know. I mean, she won last time, but it was a dead heat. She didn't do great at the Churchill turf at Churchill either. So, and like I said, I'm kind of just like, you know what, the Churchill races on everyone's past performances, they didn't happen for me. Like they're like, I'm just kind of ignoring whatever the result was. So I really didn't know what to make of Hendy Woods. The next horse I was interested in was number 6, Sunny One at 30-1. Again, got the win here last year at big odds. Figure wise is kind of increasing, still slow when you kind of look at it relative to the rest of the field, but I like that the horse drew on the outside. I like that the speed figures are increasing. And then the last horse that I was interested in was not a surprise in number 8, Princess Grace, who just kind of like, again, if I just ignore the Beverly D, I mean, it seems like she just kind of runs whatever race she wants, and you're kind of always going to get that solid, really high 1-teens or maybe a low 120s speed figure, which is definitely fast enough in this field for me. She went from the 2 post in this race last year, so she has a win on the course from a not ideal post, and now drew a lot better. So time format has the race as like slow pace, but Princess Grace, it kind of seems like, hey, we'll just let her do whatever she wants. If they want to run off, she's okay sitting behind. If they're not going to run off, then she'll just be there up front. And so I think Princess Grace probably my top choice, and then maybe Sunny One is probably my second one, and Hendy Woods is my 3rd choice.
yeah, Nick here saying didn't believe Princess Grace hung, thinks the distance was too much, unless what hanging means. At the distance, she's going to hit the front and be hard to beat. We might have lost Greg. We'll give him a second to come back.
Sorry.
No worries, Greg. No worries. I thought Nick was beating up on you, and you were ducking for cover or something. But no. Caleb, what'd you think in here?
Yeah, so I guess to start off with, I agree with both of you guys about Dalika. I'm not going to have her on any of my tickets, and it's not that I don't think that she's a nice filly or a mare, or that it's not even a Churchill thing for me. It's more of the fact that she's never put together two good races, and maybe not never, but not for a very long time. She's very much a horse that is inconsistent and struggles to put together back-to-back good efforts. She just fired off an extremely impressive race last time out, setting some nice fractions, and then holding on and putting away Princess Grace. I don't think she can fire that race back again today. I mean, I know she has a good record at Kentucky Downs, but at 2-1, I think that's a solid morning line because I think she will take money. But given her history of sort of stepping backwards off of races like that, I'm not going to bet her in here. The horses that I did look at were some of the same ones that Greg talked about. I do respect Hendy Woods. I don't love Hendy Woods simply because she dead heated with Flippant last out, who didn't really do a whole lot of running at Del Mar when she sort of came out of that race and tried to step up into a slightly better company. So I wasn't totally sure what to do with her here. So I ended up on a couple of other horses. The first one I do like in here quite a bit was the number 4, Lady Spatespear. So this is a horse that is a Canadian invader, but she's also had some success here domestically. Not so much on the win side, but always sort of shows up. It's fair to question if she can just only win at Woodbine, because that seems to be what she's done so far. But if you look at who she's lost to in the States, I think that's pretty. It'd be unfair to be too critical of that. She's lost to Bleecker Street twice, Regal Glory, and then Speak of the Devil over the Churchill Churf, which was not really playing to anybody's preference except for a very select few horses. So those are some extremely talented horses, a lot of grade 1 winners in those groups. And I'm not going to be too critical of some of those efforts. She can sit off the pace, but she also has a ton of tactical speed if Emma Wilson decides to use it. I like the fact that Jockey ships down here. So she's a horse that I'm extremely interested in this race here. And the other one, Murph touched on a few that I liked. I mean, I respect Princess Grace. I don't know if she hung or if it was a distance thing, but it bothers me she didn't get past Alika last time out. I don't know that I want to default to her as the second pick. I do like Murph's pick of Sunny One, the number 6. I don't know that you get 30-1, but I really do like that horse. To take my own long shot here, it would be the number 10, Henrietta Topham. And I get that this horse looks too slow on time form, but I'm kind of putting the figures aside briefly and just kind of going with a horse that's in really good form, is bred to get this mile absolutely all day, and has really been improving in each start since coming back as a 4-year-old. Has improved in 3 consecutive starts, including last time out where she was extremely wide the entire race. 4 wide onto both turns, 6 wide out into the stretch. And I just thought that was a really impressive effort. She looks like she's really in sharp form here, and while the waters are certainly deeper, I'm kind of not totally sold on the likes of Delica and Princess Grace, and I wouldn't mind taking a shot with a horse who's drawn to the outside, which I think has been the place you want to be lately, and is in really good form right now.
No, I very much agree with everything both of you said. My 2 horses in here that I really liked were Princess Grace, the the 8. I thought she made just a ton of sense in here. I wish Flo was riding a little better. He is not notorious for being a really solid Kentucky Downs jock, but he normally wins 1 or 2. But so hopefully we get a good run there. And I thought it was really interesting. I thought Lady Spitespear made a lot of sense in here. That really does like to win. I think this is the right distance for her. She's been known to rip 4 or 5 off in a row. It's just kind of how her form goes, and it seems like they have her right here. I don't know if the Woodbine Company is quite as good as what you're seeing in the States, but she fits in here on every metric that I look at. So I thought she was a super interesting one in this field. So I didn't have a price, but any other horses you guys think we should talk about that we haven't maybe brought up? I know, I know Nick Feldman is high on Flippant. Anyone give Flippant a look?
I didn't really like her much. Her last race kind of bothers me. I know she was a little bit wide, but you'd just like to see her do a little more running in that spot, in a race that, okay, maybe you don't beat going global, but you'd like to see her pass a couple of horses, but she just didn't really show much that day. She's had 3 races off of Lasix, 2 of which were probably the worst races of her career. The other one was a win, so take that for what it's worth. But for me, I don't know that I really want to go there at that price. But I wouldn't talk anybody off her either. If you have a strong opinion, then go for it.
Cool. So, if we don't have anything else there, let's go on to race 9, the turf sprint. This, and I'll ask the two of you guys where kind of my brain went in this is, you're getting the 12 in here, Arrest Me Red, who seems to be in just absolutely stellar form right now, and probably getting back to the right distance here. How good is Arrest Me Red in this spot? Can you get around Arrest Me Red?
I found a hard time kind of getting around her, and because the field's so big, I really tried to. She kind of is just a standout on time form. She's a standout on thoroughgraphs. For me, I'm gonna use Arrest Me Red definitely as an A. The only other horse, well, I shouldn't say the only other one. The other horse I looked at for including an A was the number 9, Front Run the Fed. I think it kind of depends though. Like, what do you think of the 4-star Dave? Because those 3 horses it was only a 5-horse field, but 3 of those horses are arguably some of the better older turf males in the division. And so if you think highly of Casa Creed and Regal Glory, and if you're a Mason simp like I am, you probably think pretty high of Front Run the Fed. But the other thing I liked about Front Run the Fed too is even though the horse has a 1 here at Kentucky Downs, I thought that the first showing was really good, and I don't know if it was this. Yeah, it was this race in 2020, but it was a soft ground. I don't know what the weather's going to be like on Saturday. The horse, I don't know. Like last time here, I didn't really see like a super great excuse for why the horse didn't win. Then took almost like a year layoff and then kind of showed back up at Colonial, which isn't exactly the strongest move. But I thought it was pretty aggressive to show up in the 4-star Dave, even though the horse placed last. Like the figure on time form is pretty respectable, and it's up there with Arrest Me Red. Arrest Me Red lifetime, his highest is a 120, and that's what Front Run the Fed ran last time. And I think third off the layoff, like maybe we can get an improvement, maybe not. The only other horse, so I had a couple other ones that I had tagged, but after really thinking about it, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not terribly interested. The only other horse I'm probably a little bit interested in is Arzak. There haven't been a ton of like Woodbine shippers here. And I think it kind of depends, like, what's your opinion of the Troy? Because let me tell you, Golden Pal didn't exactly leave the lasting impression that was a good one on me for that race. Time Form gave the race like slow fractions, and the horse did close. And if you look at the chart, he was the only one that did. And so I don't know. I kind of am wishy-washy on Arzak. He was competitive on thoroughgraphs though. The other horses I looked at and then decided to discard were the 7 and 8, which are the SoCal shippers. I think another angle is like if horses that did well in the turf course at Santa Anita are shipping to Kentucky Downs, because the layout is very similar if you look at it from the sprint wise. Like they start at the top of the hill, they come down for the left turn, and then they have, the stretch is definitely longer at Kentucky Downs, but these horses, I ultimately they're just kind of a little bit too slow for me. And then I looked at Chasing Artie, and again, I just think the horse is just a little bit too slow. So probably for me, 9, 12, and maybe a little bit of a 5.
Yeah, I landed on the same on Front Run the Fed. For a lot of reasons you mentioned. Well, it's probably my second choice. It's hard to get around Arrest Me Red. Arrest Me Red's done really nothing wrong, and it's a hard horse to fault. I have no issue with the horse, but I thought the other horse that was interesting for me was Front Run the Fed, and my real thought there was, you have Arrest Me Red, who wants to be forwardly placed and is going to be pretty aggressively, aggressively placed early. I thought was this one horse, Johnny Unleashed, with Corrales up. Probably that horse also has to be pretty aggressively placed and pretty far forward. Obviously the one post is not a great draw, and I don't know what other options Corrales has on a speed horse but to go. So I really wonder if you get a fairly contentious pace if they're kind of cranking up early, and does that set up for for a closer, somebody like a Front Run the Fed? So I thought Front Run the Fed made quite a bit of sense in there. It may have been going a little too far last out in the 4-star Dave. An aggressive spot obviously shows they have a high level of conviction in the horse. Again, this is another aggressive spot, but I do like the little bit of cutback in distance. I think it probably plays to his strong suits. So you have anything in here, Caleb?
I didn't have anything too crazy in here. I know we talked earlier, and I kind of said I thought the races here felt a little on the chalky side. So I do think that Arrest Me Red is going to be very tough to beat. It has enough speed to make whatever trip he wants. Irad Ortiz probably gets all the options here, and most likely just sits second, sitting off just off the pace. I do sort of worry about some of the turf sprinters in here that are going from really 5 or 5.5 furlong specialist up to a 6 furlong Kentucky Downs, which really plays arguably closer to 7. I would even say more than 6.5, even 7, given the uphill stretch and the pretty long run ups we've seen so far this meet. So I'm a little skeptical of some of the 5.5 specialists getting that extra furlong or furlong and a half. I think that Arrest Me Red is proven at 6, doesn't need the lead, has the speed to get it if he wants it. I thought the Jaipur, when I didn't really like the race initially, I thought it was pretty soft. It's actually turned out to be a very strong race, a very key race. So I think that this is a horse that makes all the sense in the world. Beyond him, I could make the case for about 5 different horses. I did kind of agree with you guys that I thought, Front Row the Fed was a little bit interesting in here. I never like to see a horse coming off of a career best figure in a last place effort. I'm a little bit skeptical of that, but I just wonder if he gets bet off of that race. But he does have good form here over this track, which is nice. And there's others. I mean, I kind of did like the California Shippers a little more than Murphy, maybe a little more than Greg. The 7 and 8 both have wins going down the hill at Santa Anita, which I think kind of plays similarly to Kentucky Downs. I'd probably give maybe a little more of a preference to actually Gregorian Chant over Bran, even though Bran kind of seems like the now horse. I think Gregorian Chant is a horse that has just kind of struggled to find the distance that works for him. It hasn't really been that great going 5 or 5.5. A mile's too far. So I do think this kind of prolonged 6 at Kentucky Downs might really just be what this horse needs. So I think he's interesting in here, but there's so many horses I could make a case for at a medium price that we probably don't need to spend a ton of time on it, because I do think Arrest Me Red is a pretty strong favorite in here.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. This is one of those races. There's a lot of names in here that were kind of the next great thing in turf sprinting a year or two ago, and it's sort of okay. They could technically all rebound to some of those levels. There's a lot of horses that have a lot of back class to them. So a lot of interesting ways to go here. Anybody else have any other thoughts on this race before we hop on to the next?
I'll make one last plug for Chasing Artie, a horse that I've been betting ever since his turf sprint at Churchill. He completely stumbled out of the gate that day and made a nice run up the rail, which was not the place to be for the most part on that turf course. And I don't know what happened in the Jaipur. He was terrible, but then came back to win at Gulfstream next time. So I'll probably give him one more chance in here, just because I do think this horse has ability. Now, whether he wants to go this distance at this configuration, I'm a little bit hesitant on. That's why I'm not going to unload. But he's probably the price horse in here I thought I liked the best.
Yeah, and I will give a plug for the Savvy horses. I know we kind of laughed about how poorly they ran the first, say, 3 weeks of Saratoga. And then the last 2 weeks of Saratoga, his barn lit up. And so far at Kentucky Downs, it seems like he either is pointing here or his horses are just, I don't know, everything's running. But when you have 11 starts and you're they're 3, 3, and 1, that's pretty stupid impressive. I mean, yeah, he's winning at 27%, but his horses are all running. So I do like chasing Artie here. I always love those sneaky barn connections that it doesn't seem like his horses have taken a lot of money in any of their starts either. So you're getting value to take that shot on a bit of an outsider, which is a nice thing. So yeah, and of course Nick Feldman echoing what I just said with Safi being super hot as of late. So 27%. So cool. Let's hop on to the next, which is race 10, the grade 2 turf cup. So Caleb, I have to ask, which one of these horses is going to horribly disappoint you come Saturday?
You're about to be surprised, but I'm actually surprised because I can't even say it out loud. This feels so strange. I like Arklow in this race, and that feels foreign as hell for me to say. I don't know if those words have ever left my mouth in my 30 years on this earth, but Arklow, it's probably more of a I don't trust Gufo. I've never been the biggest fan of his, and he ran a huge race in the Sword Dancer. He's coming back on what is it, 2 weeks rest? I mean, you have to think that, or I think anyway, that it's more likely that he goes backwards as opposed to forwards off of that race. Whereas a horse like Arklow, he should have won this race last year. Had a terrible trip, and then arguably should have won the Bowling Green last time out in his first start off a very long layoff, and again got a very head-scratching ride and didn't get clear until the race was basically over. And he really should have won 2 of his last 3. So for me, a horse like Arklow, who's 2 for 4 win on the win side and a perfect 4 for 4 in the exacta here, the 8-year-old Warhorse just keeps on plugging along, but he's approaching that Tom Brady territory where you start hating on him, you stop hating on him, and just start kind of respecting what he continues to do. So I think Arklow to me is kind of the horse to beat in here.
I mean, he's 9 for 37. He's not really Tom Brady, but Murphy, where'd you end up here?
Yeah, so I also liked Arklow, and I think it's funny that it took 6 years for Caleb to come around on Arklow. But I mean, so at Kentucky Downs, I mean, I don't mind fading him at any other track, but he just performs so well whenever he comes to Kentucky Downs. He's had 4 races here, and considering that you can pretty much only fit 1 race for your horse here during the whole meet. I mean, that means for the past it basically means whenever he comes here, he basically finishes somewhere in the exacta. I also on first pass didn't love Gufo. And I think I'm just going to kind of have to wait until the day of to kind of see how things are playing out, because he's definitely the fastest horse on thoroughgraphs. And it's not even close. He's a good 2 points higher. So I don't know. At 7 to 5 though, I'm really not super interested in him. The only other horse besides I kind of included Gufo there, kind of last minute. The only other horse who I was kind of interested in here was the number 10, Another Mystery. Again, and this is me just putting a scratch through the last Churchill race. And I mean, I don't know. You're not facing the best horses though when you're at Colonial, or you're shipping from an Illinois bred at Hawthorne. But I think the horse has shown that he can stick with some of the best of them. Unfortunately, I remember he did not get the job done in the Elkhorn at Keeneland when I needed him to, and I was alive for I think 12,000. He dead heated, which in my opinion wasn't a dead heat at all, in the Connolly at Sam Houston, rest in peace. So I don't know. I think the distance is kind of right up the alley for the horse. Again, at 15 to 1, I'm definitely interested. And then you also kind of get a big jockey upgrade, and you go from Jareth Loveberry to Irad Ortiz. So other than Arklow, who I'm probably gonna be tempted to use as maybe one of my only A's for the race. I was interested in Another Mystery. I also had the 6 Glenn County and Highest Honors as potential C's, but I think it's going to be really hard to get around Arklow.
You don't really get 30 to 1 on Glenn County, do you?
I don't know, because it kind of seems like for Glen County, like you get these like 30 to ones, and then they get bet down to like a 15 or a 10 to one. So you probably don't get that at all. But and yay, it's who knows? Kentucky Downs, you might get a Westwood Warhorse at 9 to 1, or
Yeah, so I'm actually surprised no Temple fans here. I'm not the biggest Temple fan. I mean, I realize he's not done a ton across the surface. I figured somebody would be on him. At least he has a little bit of recency.
my only thing against him was just he doesn't perform well on the course. He's 0 for 3 at Kentucky Downs. I mean, he's 0 for 4 at the distance, even though he's finished second twice. I just wasn't terribly interested, especially at 6 to 1. I'd much rather, if you're going to offer me Arkla at 7 to 2 or Temple at 6 to 1, I'm taking Arklow 100% of the time.
Okay. So, I agree with everything that you guys have said, kind of land on the same horses. And there's one horse, though, that I like a lot in here. And I feel kind of like maybe I'm a moron for liking a lot, but that's this 9, Who's the Star. Our good friend Sheldon has often said that Mark Casse, he's never met a trainer who does less with more. And I really wonder if that's the case with this one. This is a horse that they ran 11 times on dirt, and he was okay, but never was an amazing horse. I realize Sadler did have him for a period of time as well. They put him on turf, and he's knocked off 2 straight wins. His figures improved. It has a pedigree that says this shouldn't be outside the realm of possibility. And, and Julian of all jocks seems to see fit to hop up. I mean, dude, Julian's as good a jock as anybody else at Kentucky Downs. I really wonder if Who's the Star here, if you're looking for an outsider and you're looking for a fresh face that we don't really know what he can be because he's perfect on turf so far. Is this a horse that can take another step forward here and potentially be, that sort of interesting outsider? So I thought Who's the Star was kind of interesting. I realize he's not, never run anything fast enough on paper to be able to win this, but when you're 2 for 2 across the surface, he has every right to take that next step forward. So.
Yeah, my concern with Who's the Star, and I think that's actually a good segue, is kind of the pace. And I know that it's a mile and a half race, so you may think it doesn't really matter all that much. But that's a horse that seems to do all of his running very, very late. And I struggled to see really any early speed in here. I mean, what do you guys think of the pace in this race? Who do you even think gets the lead?
Oh, I don't really know. I mean, time form shows that Keystone Field, the 5, should get fairly loose. And then it shows, Who's the Star is being your, not on the pace, but kind of your second of your speeds here. I mean, everybody in here is a closer, right? So I don't expect that there's going to be a lot of pace going in this race. But I don't know. I would imagine Julian can kind of set that pocket trip.
I mean,
I
I think
don't know.
time form is wrong as hell. If the 9 is
Think
in the
time form is wrong?
first 6,
Okay.
I'd be fucking amazed in this race. I mean, he's going to be at the back of the pack. I do think the 5 has a shot to get the lead. I thought it was between the 5 and the 2 for the 2 horses that might go to the lead here, Breakpoint and Keystone Field. I don't know that either are good enough to actually win this race. Highest Honors is another horse that showed a new dimension last time out and did have some early speed, but I wanted to find a horse that could be forward, but I struggled to like any of the horses that I think have speed.
Yeah, I think I also agree. Like, I think that the pace projector, sometimes it's a little wonky, especially for these marathon distances. I think it's reasonable to think Keystone Field will get the lead, considering like he's like the one who's like coming from like the mile long distances. But Highest Honors, I think Highest Honors could be up there with the lead. I mean, Tyler Gaffalione is the one who pretty much like, it seems like he wins half of the card here, like every single time they run, and was up on the front the last time at Belmont. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think the 12 might be up there on the front. I definitely don't think the 11, or I mean, sorry, the 9 will be up front as like the second horse, as time form says.
Also, anyone else found it a little strange that Emma Jane Wilson is in town today to ride Lady Spitespear, but is not on this 9 horse?
Yeah, I thought that was really weird, but I didn't know what to make of it. Is that something that you I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, is this Cassie going to a very known local connections who's really knows the surface because he thinks he has a really live horse, or I can't imagine he took Emma off, who I would imagine isn't making as much as Julian is in Kentucky. So it was sort of odd. I was sort of confused at the jock change.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think Nick
so
brought up the same question as far as highest honors with Irad in town, and I think Jose's in town too, but you're getting Gaffleon instead,
Yep.
which is a fair question. Go ahead,
yeah.
Greg. I'm sorry.
So did Emma actually comment that she was actually going to Kentucky Downs? So I know sometimes what these trainers will do is they'll put a name, like they'll just put the jockey on, like they'll name them, and then the day of, it turns out, oh, never mind, I just needed a name to put on the form, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't know if that was the case, or if she's actually been like, yeah, I'm writing, because I know Kimura has commented already and been like, yes, I am going to Kentucky Downs and I am writing that Saturday card.
Yeah, I haven't read anything. I don't, again, I don't pay that much attention to Twitter, and I don't know if she would throw that up there. But yeah, is she coming into town doing a fly down just for one mount? I don't know. It probably depends on how live that mount is.
Yeah,
that
I
I
wouldn't
don't
be
know.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it was where they just needed to put the name on the form for when they drew the races, and then you just get a different jockey named on the day of. I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and that very well could be, and then that would make a lot more sense. So, cool. Any other thoughts in this race? Let's head on to race 11, the 6.5 furlong late G3 ladies sprint, the domestic return of Campanelle. And I guess my question going into this race was how does Campanelle lose this? She seems to be absolutely freakishly fast. She's kind of shown that she's just a crazy classy filly. And yeah, I don't, I just think she's kind of head and shoulders above anybody in here. How does she lose this?
Well, I think for me, there seems to be a pattern of whenever she returns overseas, and that is the fact that she doesn't win whenever she returns from overseas. So I kind of wax and wane on her. I really don't love her, to be honest. I mean, when she goes overseas, she faces Open Company, and then she comes back and she faces fillies. So I think I'm going to use her as an A. And I was looking at thoroughgraphs, and actually she's kind of like she's quick on thoroughgraphs, but there's actually horses that match her. And interestingly, they all come from the Laguna Distaff turf at Ellis Park, which I think there's like 3 or 4 horses in this field that show up from that race. The number 4, Brooke Marie, and the number 5, Creative Credit, the number 6, Toby's Heart. There might be another one in there, but I didn't. Oh, the number 2, Violenza. They all got really respectable thoroughgraph figures from Ellis Park last time. So I am actually gonna. I don't think I'm gonna try to beat Campanelle, but she's not gonna be what I would consider to be a single, like Arrest Me Red, where I might just try to use Arrest Me Red as the lone A. So now saying that, I had to look at Ellis because I don't pay attention to really Ellis all that often. And horses on the turf sprints, they win from the 1 to 3 posts more often, and they go wire to wire about 60% of the time. And so I think creative. I wasn't quite sure what to do with Creative Credit. They were kind of with connections that I'm unfamiliar with, but those 2 things considered, the horse drew the 1 post in that race and also went wire to wire. And so I'm going to try to fade Creative Credit from that race, and I'm going to try to use the other horses there. The number 4, Brooke Marie, I liked as the second A. I'm going to use the number 2, Violenza, as a C because I'm not super thrilled with the post, and also the horse, they haven't won in quite a while, and the last win was at Colonial, but the thoroughgrass figure, it came back pretty respectable. The only other horse that I'm going to use from this race is the number 11, In Good Spirits, and that is only because the horse won this race last year from the outside post. Kind of interesting that when you look at it, the horse has won 4 times. 2 of those were as a 2-year-old, and so you can kind of reasonably say, well, the horse is probably just a better 2-year-old than everyone else in those fields. And then the last one being here at Kentucky Downs a year ago. I think they've been kind of campaigned to similar aggressiveness as last year. She's definitely quicker. Well, I shouldn't say she's definitely quicker. She's run about the same, if not a little bit quicker than last year. And so I think she's gotten a great post. And because of the one on the course, I think I have to include her. But like I said, I didn't love Campanelle. And who knows, maybe on the day of, I'll be like, you know what, 8-5 is too short for me. Forget it. I'm not going to use her at all. And I'm going to try to go with these other horses from the Ellis race and with In Good Spirits and see what happens.
Caleb, how about it?
Oh boy, this race was difficult for me because I think Campanelle is hands down the best filly or mare in this race. But I think she, maybe has some questions to answer. I think Greg brings up a really good point in that her first race back from coming overseas has not been her finest effort. And I think it remains to be seen how much that she really wants to go 6.5 furlongs. All of her wins have come shorter than that at either 5, 5.5, or 6 overseas. Now, you can argue that a 6 furlongs at Ascot or Deauville, for example, is probably the same as 6.5 at Kentucky Downs, given the way that course plays, and I wouldn't really give you a hard time over that. But this is an 8-5 horse that's going to take all the money. Either of her 2 wins this year, either 2 races this year, either at Keeneland or at Ascot, would win this race pretty handily. I'm not going to try hard to beat her. The one horse, that Murph mentioned that I did like was In Good Spirits. I think she makes a lot of sense. She's proven over the course here, and then probably just hasn't gotten the right trips or the right spots after that. So I think coming back to Kentucky Downs, she makes some sense in here. I am going to go the opposite direction on one of the horses that he talked about, though, which was the number 5, Creative Credit. This is a horse that I don't think will take any money. Because of the connections, very, very small town connections. I didn't know these connections at all, and really I still don't, to be honest with you. But I wanted to toss this horse completely, but every start this year, and there's 5 starts this year, it's not a small number, this mare has improved. On time form, she has stepped forward, and on Thoroughgraph, she stepped forward. Maybe she had an advantageous trip last time, kind of setting the pace her own way and getting the inside draw. But she put away a really good speed horse in Ella Z, who is the number 12 horse in this race and is a very accomplished turf sprinter in her own right. Ella Z tried to go with the number 5 here, Creative Credit, and she couldn't keep up. She faded badly, and the closers largely dominated that race. So I kind of think that Creative Credit sort of ran against the flow of that race, despite the fact that maybe she had a favorable post. And I don't know that she can do 6.5 at Kentucky Downs, but I think you're going to get every bit of 12-1 and probably more. So I'm willing to take a gamble to pay to find out just how good this mare might be right now.
Yeah, Caleb and I basically 100% agree on this race, and that never ends well. I ended up on Campanelle and Creative Credit. I thought, I love to see that Pompal is shipping in. I'm hoping he's shipping in again. Maybe this is another situation where he's just named here and he gets taken off last minute. But he's a very cool jock. Plays or rides a lot of the podunk tracks that I like to play during the winter. So, and I thought Creative Credit, there's something to be said for a horse that just likes to win. And she's been on a hell of a win streak lately. She likes to get her photo taken, likes to finish first. Seems like she's really found her niche. Again, this is going a little further than she's normally gone. And I don't know if she necessarily handles the little bit extra distance, but she's in really good form right now. And, it'll be interesting. Again, this is connections for a horse that I think is very live that probably gets lost on the board. I think you'll get every bit of this 12-1. It wouldn't surprise me if you got 20-1 on her with other horses in here that are more known connections taking money. So, I'm willing to take those kind of gambles to see if she's really legit. And sometimes these small market, trainers and connections do get a really nice horse. It happens. So I thought Creative Credit was actually really interesting in here. I do agree with all the things you guys said about Campanelle and she had her tendency to bounce. But I felt like I was including the field if I want a ton deeper. So I'm just going with those 2, the 5 and the 10.
Yeah, I feel you. There's a lot of horses in here I have as like C question mark on my form. Like could use at 20, 30 to 1, but like, do I really want to spread that deep? So if you get past the top two or three, I think the race gets extremely tough. But I did want to ask you guys about one horse that I think is probably going to go off as your second or third choice, which is the number 3 Jouster. That's a horse that I had written down from her start all the way back in the Giants Causeway early this year, where she did not get a good trip. And I thought she had to be forwardly placed. She wasn't, but she was probably the best closer in that race. And then she had a bad trip again in the Intercontinental. And then she did come back and get a nice win at Belmont in that following start before kind of failing to show up at Saratoga in her subsequent start. I mean, any of you guys give her a shot in here? I mean, 5 to
Yeah,
1 price I probably want, but I think she makes some sense.
Yeah, she does make some sense. My concern with Jouster is just the fact that, I know Kentucky Downs does tend to play long. You sort of at these sort of 6 furlong distances, you want those milers, right? But I always really thought she was a little bit better going a little further than this. I mean, is she really just a miler, and that's really what she wants? If you look at, historically, those have been her best performances going a little further, and I wonder if this is just a little bit sharp for her. She does make some sense. I wouldn't talk anybody off her, but I think you just need to get the right kind of price on her, given that there's a bunch of question marks here. And I just wonder, everything that Rosario was on the last couple of days has taken a ton of money, I think, based on his 2021 Kentucky Downs, where he won everything. And he's honestly was not that good today. Maybe we just got Thursday Rosario, but he honestly rode pretty terribly, and there were 2 or 3 mounts that you just were head scratchingly bad out of him. So I wonder if he's still trying to figure the surface out. I just think it's a horse that probably there's no value there, because the odds end up being quite a bit shorter than I think the horse's real chances of winning are. I would rather take some other a little more outside or a little less known horse.
I didn't give really the horse, like the horse on time form looked a little bit too slow.
Yeah.
I also get a little bit turned off because the last race, the fractions of it was like 24 and 49, and then the horse ended up fading. And I understand that In Good Spirits was also in that race and faded. But I'm kind of giving In Good Spirits the chance because she's proven herself over the course. And I think for Jouster, I'm just kind of like, at 5 to 1, not an ideal draw, kind of slow on time form, never ran over the track. I'd much rather toss and get my value elsewhere.
That's a fair
Yeah.
take.
Yeah, I would agree. One other horse that is going to be a little bit of a price, I would imagine, that won't take a ton of money, that I did find a touch interesting. Anybody give a look to the 7 She Can't Sing? I know Time Form liked some of those, and I realize it's at, side of kind of second tier, third tier tracks. But some of those figures going back a bit here were a little bit interesting. I honestly, that 2 back that Canterbury, I thought was a really respectable fig. It comes back just as fast as some of the major players here. And she didn't fire last out. Looked like she weakened going probably a little further than she wants to go. Is this a horse that the cutback might kind of be what she wants? And again, another one that I think is much like the 5, probably gets lost on the board, but you get quite a bit of value here.
Can you zoom in, Mark? I can't read the sire on this horse.
Yeah,
I know. I was waiting for it.
I know. That's it's so funny. I've historically been a big Bernardini on turf hater, and unfortunately after he died, I kind of came around and was like, he actually wasn't too bad, but and I tend to kind of cover my eyes to that when the horse is kind of proven on turf. Unfortunately, on thoroughgraphs, the horse was pretty slow compared to the rest of the field, and that's why I ended up not including. And also, I don't know. Bernardini, historically, when I consider breeding, he's definitely probably a better router than, he kind of has better routers than he does sprinters, for sure. And so if anything, I think the distance is actually probably a little bit too short. And now I would not have minded it if she had showed up in one of the marathon races that they've been doing, like the 5/16, but they aim her here, and I really don't like it.
Yeah, I agree. I can see the turf but I don't know that I can see a turf sprint. I think I'd like her better to mile.
Yeah, no, I respect that, and also the one I struggled with is I don't know if I'm going off time form figs. I don't know if I definitely don't trust fairgrounds time form figs because we've proven that those fairground winter meat figs are very suspect, and I don't necessarily know if I trust Canterbury either. So, is this just a case of some suspect figs and soft company? So cool. If we don't have anything else there, let's go on to the 12th. The what is it? The Franklin Simpson Stakes, 600K, 6.5 for the boys. I don't think it's restricted, but I think this all came up Colts. Um, Big Invasion is going to be your 8-5 favorite. He makes a ton of sense in here for me. There's a horse I'm interested on the also eligible list that I don't understand why that horse is on the also eligibles list and is not in the body of this field. And that was going to be my question for one of you, but let's start off with Greg. So, what were your thoughts on here?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think Big Invasion is just going to be incredibly hard to beat in here. He just seems like he loves to win on both time form and on thoroughgraphs. He was pretty far ahead of the rest of the field. And I was kind of waiting for thoroughgraphs to kind of confirm what I had already thought. So I think probably for me, Big Invasion will probably be my lone A. Now, as far as other horses that I am probably going to use as a B, I liked the 10 asymmetric. As we kind of know, what Wesley Ward, he always kind of shows up here. Asymmetric on thoroughgraphs, he was, I think, the second quickest of the bunch, and he's 8-1. I don't know how these turf courses he ran in England. I don't know how they're laid out, but if they're laid out similar to Kentucky Downs, there's no reason to think that maybe he just likes that style of turf course better. The horse, I don't know if we ended up on the same horse on the Ultra Eligible, was the number 13, Evan Singh. Again, that one on thoroughgraphs was pretty quick. The outside draws, in my opinion, pretty good. But again, I'm just kind of banking that the horse ends up drawing in, So I didn't really give the horse too much thought, other than, this horse looks interesting. I better tag it before Saturday comes up, and then I end up losing to it. Horses that I think I'll probably have as C's are going to be I had number 4 Heaven Street, but now he's actually not really fast on he's not super fast on anything else, but he has a win here last year as a 2-year-old going a mile, and so that's kind of why I had him included, even though his form really looks to kind of just be like a not improving 3-year-old. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with him on the day of. And then I've always been a fan, I shouldn't say always, since the Breeders' Cup Juvie last year, I've been trying to get Run Curtis Run, the number 7, and I just can never seem to get it. I thought his first turf debut in the Futurity at Belmont looked really good. He got an absolutely impossible post in the Del Mar Breeders' Cup Sprint. And then ever since then, I've bet him back. He's always seemingly at high odds. I don't know what I'll get today. We know Mike Maker is also a really good horse here, or a good trainer here, but he's slow on figs. I don't know. I mean, he can't get 5.5, so can he get 6.5? I don't know, right? Probably not. So I'm probably going to use Run Curtis Run as a C, even though I'm a pretty big fan of the horse.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Greg. I'm not going to try very hard to beat Big Invasion. I think this is probably, arguably the second best turf sprinter in the country right now after Golden Pal, who clearly did not impress anybody with his last win. This horse is really, really good, and he's got wins from 5.5 all the way up to 7, all of them by open lengths. There's really no chink in the armor here unless you just think he doesn't take to the course for some reason. But Big Invasion is very, very good. The only other horse that I was really interested in was on the also eligible list, and it was the one you talked about, which was the number 13, Evan Singh. I really hope this horse draws in because I'd love to have something going to this horse. This is a gelding who's improved in all 4 of his career starts, pretty lightly raced in here. And I thought that July 28th race at Saratoga came back extremely live. He won that race, then he beat Finn White Duke, who went on to run third to Golden Pal in the Troy, but he was only beaten like a head or a neck. And then he came out of that race to win his subsequent effort after that. You had the fourth place finisher, Immortalization came back to win a Saratoga allowance, and then Legends Can't Die came back to win a Saratoga race as well. That race has been super live. I think that Evan Singh is a horse that's just really, really sharp. Should love every bit of this distance, as he sort of seems like a horse that falls in between that 5.5 and 1 mile kind of distance. So I hope he draws in. I'd love to get me a big invasion over Evan Singh Exacta, and I would use Evan Singh as probably my only B in this kind of a race in a pick 5.
Yeah, no, very cool. Yeah, we were real similar. Evan Singh was actually the one of the horses that I was very interested in. The other one was the 15 Catamasto, who I thought was I realized Joseph O'Brien's horses haven't been running much in the United States, but this is a horse that's actually got some pretty good form. Time form liked a lot of those figs, can be really forwardly placed. This is probably the distance. Found that Saratoga race, the Mahoney, that was a merry-go-round that day. They just all followed each other around. Big Invasion got to the lead. The race was over on a very, very speed-favoring turf course, and this horse just basically followed him around. So I was a little bit interested to see the rematch. I realized I'm not going to probably get a good price, and I don't even know if the horse will end up drawing in here. But I thought that one was also one that was on the also eligibles list that I was a little interested in, and I hoped sort of drew in. I know Charles B down here in chat saying that Big Invasion is likely to scratch on soft turf, so I don't know if he maybe doesn't handle the soft going. I know there is some weather forecast, so if he does scratch out of this all of a sudden becomes an extremely interesting betting race. So we'll see who sort of ends up drawing in. But any other thoughts? Thoughts in this race?
Only because this stream has been entirely too civil. I mean, Big Invasion was 5 lengths behind your 15 horse in that race and looped him like he wasn't even running. I'm not sure I would say it was a speed favoring track when you gave up a 5-length advantage and still got beat by 3 lengths in that race.
Yeah, no, valid point. No, that's
now,
valid.
Should he scratch? That's a different conversation. If Big Invasion scratches, this race becomes really, really hard. A horse I looked at was the number 11 Coinage, and I hate this horse, but doesn't he sort of kind of make a little sense?
He does. I mean, but my problem was if Big Invasion scratches out of this, I think I have like 7 horses I'm going to end up using.
Yeah.
It's just one of those races that I think there's just a cliff from Big Invasion to everybody else. Yeah, Coinage makes sense, but so do 6 or so others. I don't know if I could. Yeah, I don't know if I could use Coinage if Big Invasion is still in.
I hate Coinage. Period. He's my Arklow. Yeah, 5 years from now, when Coinage has won, 1.5 million, I'll be like, okay, you know what? Actually, I like Coinage.
Oh, and Nick Feldman bringing the real questions here. Assuming Big Invasion scratches and you're targeting something like this pick 5, what other legs do you get more aggressive at? Where do you where do you take your shots so that you can spread more in this type of a race?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I think for me, I think the horses you can build around are Arrest Me Red, Campanelli, and then Arklow, and then obviously the horse here, Big Invasion. I think out of the previous 3, I mean, I still feel like I can probably build a good ticket with the 3 favorites I just mentioned. I guess I would probably get a little more aggressive around Arklow because I think Gufo probably doesn't run that race back that he needs to run to win this race. Arrest Me Red, I think, is a horse that makes a lot of sense, and he really fits. Campanelli is probably not a horse I'm going to really build around because I'm a little bit skeptical of her shipping back from overseas and going to a distance that's farther than she's ever run before. So she's not where I would go. I would say Arklow, Arrest Me Red, or probably one of those two.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it would be Arrest Me Red would probably be the one I would be more aggressive, probably the most aggressive to in the sequence. I think I'm most comfortable with Arrest Me Red because I do want, I'm talking coverage here, and I think I want coverage in the marathon race as well. Just given that, both Greg and Caleb are so high on Arklow that it scares the crap out of me. So I feel like I need coverage in there. I mean, Caleb absolutely being happy to bet. I mean, a turf marathon horse to start with, but Arklow. So I think that race I want a little bit of coverage in, just because I didn't have a good feel for that race. What were you thinking, Greg?
Yeah, regarding Arklow, you never know. You might hear the Zulu Alpha music pretty soon,
Oh,
too.
no.
I think for me, I think when you consider the sequence, for me, I think I'm actually kind of pretty narrow to the point where I feel like I can spread and pass Big Invasion. I'm actually pretty comfortable having Princess Grace in leg 1 as like a single A, and then using Sunny One and Hendy Woods are as Bs, or maybe even Hendy Woods as a C. So I'm already pretty narrow to start to try to beat the Lika. I think Arrest Me Red is another one, because I'm not super confident in Arrest Me Red, but I'm more confident in Arrest Me Red than Campanelli. I think I could, in that second leg, I think I could probably get away with using Arrest Me Red, front run the Fed, and then maybe Arzak. Caleb made a good point about Gregorian Chant, so I kind of like tagged him to go back and look. And then in the marathon, I'm pretty comfortable with just using Arklow as a single A. I think the only other horse I said I was interested in there was another Mystery, but that horse is not an A for sure. And then that kind of, if I go that narrow, it kind of allows me to spread a little bit more in these last two, where I'm not a super big fan of Campanelli, and then I can use the 4 or 5 horses from that Ellis Park's turf sprint, and then if Big Invasion does end up scratching, again, I'll probably reevaluate some of these other horses that I had tossed, but I still think Asymmetric is a good horse, especially at H1. Again, I think I just kind of have the soft spot for Run Curtis Run. I'd probably upgrade him from a C to a B. If Big Invasion scratches, that means Evan Singh is the first one in. So I don't think that's such a bad thing for him to scratch, because it's like, okay, great. The next horse on the AE is another horse that I love anyway. So I kind of feel like, for me, again, I like Princess Grace enough. I like Arklow enough. I like Arrest Me Red enough to where, if you're like, you know what, I can run with these 3 favorites, then that will kind of allow you to spread in the other legs.
Cool. And Nick Feldman threw up one last question here, and I think it's a good one, because it's not something we brought up. I want other directions to start, and that's sort of this thing of what are everyone's thoughts on Flightline? With his massive performance, and apparently he's the greatest horse since Ghost Zapper or Secretariat, or I don't know, whoever everybody draws up for a line. Would you guys think of that?
I don't know.
Guys, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I haven't been following horses that long, all things considered. Probably like, I didn't go to the races until 2013. I didn't really start paying attention to the horses until like 2016 or 2017, like following Breeders' Cup and Triple Crown and things like that. I mean, in that time, there's horses that are like, the horses that are memorable for me are like California Chrome and American Pharaoh and Justify, who's like a comet. He was there, then he's not. So to see a horse like Flightline, I mean, I know people were kind of like, oh, he's overrated and this and that and this and that. I know last week in the chat I put like single Flightline and move on. I mean, his performance last week is just, I think it's going to be really hard to, I don't know, it is probably going to be another 20 or 30 years until a horse like that probably comes around. But who knows, right? I had told someone like, hey, he got a -8 on Thoroughgrass, maybe he's going to bounce now, So, but I don't know. Like he just, puts all those other horses to shame. And like Country Grammar, he still got respectable figures. Like Country Grammar still got. I mean, Country Grammar ran his race, right, and Flightline was just so much better. So yeah, I don't know. I know for me, when I consider the memorable horses, like this one is like those horses, American Pharaoh, California Chrome, Justify, those are 10,000 claimers in comparison to Flightline's performance for me.
Yeah, so I've long been on the record as saying Life is Good is a generational horse and a generational talent. And I think I need to find a new word that's bigger than generational. I don't know what the word is. So I was struggling with that because I was wrong. I played against Flightline in that race. I didn't want to bet him at 1-5 at a new distance. And I was absolutely stone cold and possibly wrong. And Flightline it was a treat. I've never been so tickled to be wrong because Flightline, excuse me, is the greatest racehorse that I've seen in my life. On television since I've been alive, not counting the replays of Secretariat or whatever else. That race was just impossibly good. He made some really good horses look like claimers, like Greg said, and that was just really, really impressive. He's a treat to watch, and I think he may not be the greatest horse of all time, and he may never be the greatest horse of all time, given his campaign, the way he was managed. But he's in the conversation for the most brilliant horse of all time, and I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think personally, I think the brilliant line is probably the perfect line. I think if you have a conversation, you say he, had one amazingly brilliant, he's had a number of amazingly brilliant performances. He may not be campaigned the way you want. You may not see him as much as you'd like, but I think that brilliant is probably the appropriate word. I remember seeing Rachel Alexandra's Woodward, which to me was probably the best horse race I've ever seen live. I saw, I remember when I'm trying to think, I've seen a few other amazingly impressive. Uncle Mo's maiden break was freakish. Rachel Alexandra's or her Kentucky Oaks. A few other ones where horses just absolutely just abolished or destroyed amazingly good or talented fields. And you can't draw a line and say, well, who are they beating? There were some talented horses there. It was really impressive. I really hope we get to see him a few more times because every time he steps on the track, you're now are going, oh, what are we going to see this time? It's that sort of Secretariat sort of a vibe. So I think he's probably been a little overhyped maybe on the Twitter sphere of everybody talking about him being the greatest racehorse ever. I need to see more. He needs to, win. I realize he's won some really good races, but maybe win a Breeders' Cup Classic or something like that, and then we can start having those conversations. But he's clearly had some very brilliant performances, and I think that's the appropriate word.
Yeah, and I know Nick says in chat, like next one said they'll run him at 5. I'm not holding my breath, being as how they contained him as a.
Yeah, there's zero chance of that happening. That ain't happening.
Now, let me ask you guys though, what does that make you guys think of the Breeders' Cup, like Breeders' Cup Classic? Like knowing the competition out there, like, are you guys even thinking about looking at the form, or are you just gonna go Flightline's the one? I don't even care what his odds are. I'm only using him.
Gonna be a 3-horse field or something, or a 5-horse field. Who's gonna run versus him? Yeah. Why would you run versus him when you look at all the other classic contenders who can drop down to the mile and maybe actually win? You're effectively at this point saying, okay, we're okay taking second place, and if you're cool with that, yeah, you're going to run your horse. But why wouldn't you find another spot? Or I know some other people have done those sort of late season aqueduct, late season run something at Churchill, and then skip over the Breeders' Cup. That's been done by a few people. Maybe you target. I don't remember what's the big money Churchill race. Is it? I want to say Carter, but it's not Carter.
Big money Churchill race.
Yeah, there's a Churchill
Stephen
fall
Foster?
race. Is it Stephen Foster?
Yeah.
Maybe you go someplace like that and then just skip Breeders' Cup if you have one of those. Like everybody's going to duck and cover and go someplace else because why would you want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, Flightline is a free square for me in the Classic as long as he comes out of that race fine and he trains up to the race the way he was expected to. I don't need to handicap that race. And I think if you're the connections of a horse like Life is Good, I think it's a shame, but I think you give a very hard look to the dirt mile. If you're the connections of a horse like Hot Rod Charlie or Mandaloon or whoever else, I think you're looking pretty hard at the dirt mile. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a 5 or 6 horse classic field with Flightline, Epicenter, Olympiad, and then 2 no hopers.
A stiletto boy.
A stiletto boy, and yeah, exactly.
Cool. Anything else from anybody? What are you up to this weekend, Caleb?
Nothing too crazy. We're kind of in that dead zone for New York where there's no New York racing for this weekend. So I'm going to be pretty involved on Saturday because we have the. So for those of you who haven't seen it yet, TVG is offering a really, really good contest. It's a $500 buy-in and there's no entry fee. So essentially, you're just all you have to do is commit to bet $500, and you get a chance to win 4 seats to the BCBC or NHC. There's cash prizes involved, and you have to play Kentucky Downs and Del Mar. I think it's 10 race minimum, $50 a pop. So $500 total bankroll. It's live bankroll. So I'm going to be in that. That'll be my focus for the weekend. I'm pretty excited for it. It's a cool contest, and it's 2 tracks that I generally do okay at. So I think it'll be pretty cool. Yeah, Nick, it is live. It's live bankroll. So win, play, show, exacta, and daily double. They don't include trifecta or pick 3. And that's a really cool contest, given the bankroll limitation, the fact that there's no entry fee. So I'll be mostly focused on that.
Yeah, I think it's a little weird. I think you have to play 10 races total, but you can go. I think what was it? There's some stipulation of playing 10 races, but yeah, it is a live and it's a real money live contest, so it should be a fun one. So what are you up to, Greg? I think I already know, but
Yeah, so on Saturday I'll do the 3rd leg of that Kentucky Downs contest. You know, like you kind of said at the start of the stream, I mean I think everyone. I looked at the leaderboard. Like the top guy only has like 4,700 or something, and of course I have like 2,000 something. So I'm not too far behind. I mean I'm betting Kentucky Downs anyway, and I looked at that TVG one, but being that I move around quite a bit, I didn't keep up with like my mailing address or whatever billing address, whatever they have on there. So I don't know. I'll have to see if I can sneak away into funding it. I tried to do it with my credit card, and that's with the wrong address. And I was like, all right. It was like midnight when I was doing this, and I was like, all right, forget it. I'm not going to bother. So I might try to look into it again and see if they'll let me do something else. But I do agree that the TVG one. I mean, you're basically just if you bet $500, you might as well play. The minimums on it, I'm never a big fan of minimums like that in tournaments where they make you do like $50 over 10. Like I'd much rather be like you have to do a minimum of like I don't know 100 over 5 or 50 over 5 or something like that. Like I can see why they want minimums, but I hate when it's that many races that you have to do because I mean how I typically attack those is all in on like 1 or 2 plays, and it's kind of shitty when your play is like the last race at Del Mar or if it's like the last race at Kentucky Downs. I don't know how the times are laid over. Like maybe you might have enough time between the last race of Kentucky Downs and then you might still have like I don't know, 5 or 4 races left at Del Mar where you can be like, all right, $50 show bet, $50 show bet, but that still means that like you still have to basically risk your $50 on plays that you don't really like. And for me, meeting minimums, it's always just about like show bet, show bet, show bet on horses that you like or like really small fields. And it's more or less like, all right, I'm basically going to like risk 50 to basically hopefully get my money back and like 5 or 10 extra bucks on top of that. So but yeah, the TVG contest, if anyone's like really interested, I definitely recommend you look into it. They already said that they're capping it, I think, at like 400 or 500 entries, but the whole pool is seeded by TVG and FanDuel.
cool. Very, very cool. I may hop into either one of those two. Probably more likely to hop into the TVG one, just given that I am so far out of the money right now for the Kentucky Downs Turf Triple that it's probably a better value proposition. Gives me more options to hop into the TV or the TVG one. So I'm in the same boat. I actually was like, I know I have a TVG account. I haven't logged into it in like 5 years. Can I hack my way back into it? And I got in today. So I was proud of myself. So I may hop into that one. We'll see how it all goes. So cool. Any last thoughts from anybody?
Nope. Thanks for having me on. I loved it. Hopefully I can join you guys when I'm in Japan. We were joking around earlier, like I'll live stream it from, Tokyo Race Course or something like that when I'm over there. But I love being on. I love being on in the chat. So it's nice to see the typical people that are here today.
No, we're very happy to have you, Greg. It's nice. We have a good stack of people who we can be like, oh, we're playing this track. Who somebody's a specialist. We need to fill in. And with it being a very tournament-y weekend, a lot of people qualifying, and also 2 tracks I know you're very good at. I was like, yeah, Greg is the perfect person to pull in because he'll have some really good opinions. So cool. Let me see if I can figure out how to end this thing and not screw anything up.
What if I told you that the perfect man did exist, but he was cursed? I mean, he's just a complete handicapper. East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, might be the best I've ever seen. He could be the best looking guy in all of horse racing. I mean, he gives Matt Bernier a run for his money. I mean, we all saw it. He was minding his own business, walking back from the bathroom. Hottest girl on the bar just grabs him and says, reel me in. Turns out you can't always be that lucky one.
Zulu Alpha charges up the rail under Tyler Gaffleon and takes the lead late. Zulu Alpha wins the Pegasus World Cup Turf.